Hello and welcome to Steps to Maths. In this short introductory video to real numbers, I will be introducing you to what the real numbers are, what they're made of, and some of the terms and keywords that you will be using as you go through this chapter. So the real numbers consist of the natural numbers, the integers, the rational numbers, the real numbers, and some of the terms that you will be looking at as you go through this chapter are properties and operations. You'll be looking at the acronym BIMDAS, and you will be also looking at the words associative, commutative, and distributive. So let's have a look at the different types of real numbers. The first set of numbers that we'll be looking at are the natural numbers, which you already know as the counting numbers. So when you're counting things, you start at 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Those three little dots there are what we use to say and so on forever. We will be looking at operations, ones which you already know, like multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting. Ones which you may or may not know, like powers and indices. We'll be looking at the order that you carry out these operations in, and we'll be looking at the keywords BIMDAS, the acronym BIMDAS and what that means. And we'll be looking at the word associative and what that means. The second set of numbers that we'll be looking at are the integers. So the integers include the whole numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But they also include negative numbers, -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on down below. We'll be looking at operations on integers, such as multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting. We'll be looking at powers and indices for integers, which is slightly more interesting than what happens with natural numbers, so we'll have a look at that. And we'll be looking at the order of operations, and again the terms BIMDAS and associative. After the integers, we'll be looking at the rational numbers, which are also called the quotients. So these are the set of numbers that can be written as some number p divided by some number q, where p and q are integers. So these are what you already know as the fractions, and we'll be looking at the operations on these, again multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting, and we'll be looking at powers and indices, which are more interesting again for rational numbers than they were for integers and they were for natural numbers. Let's have a look at the final set of numbers. These are the real numbers. So the real numbers include all of the numbers that can be written as a fraction and all of the numbers that cannot be written as fractions. This is a slightly unusual concept. It's a fairly new one, that a number cannot be written as a fraction. But we include these now in the real numbers and we show them as a continuous line. Some of the real numbers that cannot be written as fractions include pi, e, and other numbers, for example, the square root of 2 or the square root of 3 or the square root of 5. So these are the real numbers that we'll be looking at, and some of the terms and operations that we'll be carrying out while looking at them. So this is just the introduction, and I'll be explaining this in more depth in future videos.